I know what I've spoken to some great people from Albania, Mr. Gash Apostoli, whom I remember as a fine engineer as well as a minister in one or two governments, I can't remember, but that is irrelevant. What is relevant is what I remember in him as a mechanical engineer, and of course the main reason why I have a soft spot for engineers is because I'm one of them. So, World Peace Federation is a, how do I start? It's an organization, a network that brings together individuals and organizations, and it promotes peace amongst people of different origins, in different continents, and in times such as this, especially after the Second World War, is more needed than ever to have peace. Now, when it comes to peace, we Albanians have a very noble woman to remember, and I'm referring to Mother Teresa, or Saint Teresa, who is the saint of all Albanians, of course, but she is a worldwide saint, otherwise known in Albanian as Agnes Gonje Boyagiu. And what she said is a very simple sentence: peace begins with a smile. So if we all smile, we've instilled an element of peace on everyone. It's fine, phones can go as long as they don't answer. I want to share one very simple thing with you today, and it may be a little bit boring, but it's a story, it's a real story. I'm not making it up, and I remember everything that happened 30 years ago. And yes, of course, I'm much older than that. So, when I was a student in the 5th year, and for those young people who only go to university for 3 years here, yes, we did go to uni for 5 years, wow. And we did also go there for 6 days a week. Unlike nowadays, where you go there for 2 or 3. This is what my son at least tells me. I don't know if he's telling the truth, I hope he is. So, when we were students in the 5th year, our lecturers or professors who had the very high esteem in Albania, and I'm always surprised why that is not the case in the UK. But it isn't, unfortunately. And they are have a high esteem, but not as high as they are in Albania. So, year 5, he used to socialize with them as a friend. So we used to go out with him to drink. He's no longer alive, by the way. A great man, everyone of my generation and before will know him, Andrea Kotra, I'm referring to. He was from the South Albania, from Lancaster, and he taught us maths. And when we were socializing, of course, he wasn't teaching us maths, he was teaching us life skills. And one of the life skills that he was teaching us was how to speak, how to talk to people, because it is more important how you actually say things than what you say. So, to make it more realistic, and this is all his words, if you want to go out with a girl, for example, you take her out, and I have a lot of friends from this area, from Vlore and the surrounding areas, and the way they say to a girl that I love you is, I love your dog, I love your chum. And he said to us that if this is what we say to girls, you're very unlikely. They're very unlikely to come back to you, so you must find another way, or you have to find a better way of speaking to them. It's probably the reason why I went on the other side of Albania, southeast of Albania, to find my own wife from the beautiful city of Pogradec. Okay, so the purpose of the meeting today is to set up this council, but I promised Robin, and I'm sure that he has laid that to Michael and the others here, that what you have here is some representatives of a great community. It's an Albanian community that comes from various regions, not only Albania, Kosovo, Macedonia and Montenegro, but it goes beyond into other countries, such as southeast of Serbia, Preševo, and the other 3 valleys that are Albanians. The community here is pretty new or young. I was telling Robin last night, I don't know how much he remembers, I remember every word I said. And it is, it started just before the World War II started. During the war, some people came here, and then after the war. And then there was a long pause of about 50 years. And that's mainly because of the dictatorship regime that we had in Albania, where people were not allowed to leave the country, frankly speaking. So by early 1990s, there was really only about 100 people from Albania, I'm talking here. There were some from Kosovo and other Albanian regions, Macedonia and other places, because obviously during the 1980s the oppression had started in Kosovo and within former Yugoslavia, and it really started against the Albanians first, and most brutally, in fact, against the Albanians. But these are very low numbers. I remember myself when I first came to this country in 1994 as a student, and the immigration officer really had a huge interest in checking out the Albanian passport, which was very basic at the time. I don't think it had any security features at the time, but I don't think British passports had either. So, but he was just curious to know what it looks like, what it is, etc. And that is because he had probably never ever seen an Albanian person, individual, in his life. And then the bulk of the people of Albanian origin that came to this country were in the late 1990s. You'll know that there are two terrible things that happened to not only to Albanians but also to the region, and that is the outright war in Kosovo. The oppression became more brutal, and an outwar aggression started in Kosovo. And right before that, there was some unfortunate developments in Albania with the collapse of pyramidal schemes at the time. So these are two events that led to a large number of people, probably most of us here in the room today, having left our own country and come here. However, as a community, we're very proud because we are extremely well integrated. Wherever you go, you will find Albanians working in the public or the private sector. I remember 4 years ago, during the elections campaign, the mayoral elections, and I went with one of the candidates. I will not tell you who that is, you can find out. So one of the things we did was to go to different primary and secondary schools. So as an Albanian, I felt very proud when I saw Albanian names saying that they were doing very well in their studies. And by the time that we went to the third school, the candidate at the time, he said to me, "You don't need to tell me who is Albanian now, because I recognize their names and I also recognize their faces." So in a way we are unique. Definitely our names are pretty unique. We have representatives here. It's such a pleasure to see so many of you. There are people who work in social enterprises. There are people who work right in the private sector. There are bankers, there are finance people. If you go to a bank, you're likely to see an Albanian mortgage advisor. But also there are people who work in the NHS, which is really a treasure in this country, and it spends nearly £300 million a year. So Albanian doctors and nurses, but mainly doctors, play a part in it, not in spending the money, but in helping people recover from illnesses. And then there are people in the public sector right across in local and central government. But above all, there are people who work in the private sector as entrepreneurs, and they employ other people. I think the word is that there are more than 2,500 businesses, private businesses that is operating mainly in London. Because of course, as you all know, our community is based in London. We do have some representatives from other areas of the UK, but it's probably 80 to 90% of us live in London. So there is another thing that makes the attempt, or the effort of the Universal Peace Federation to set up an Albanian council in the UK, probably in other places as well, is because we are, I wouldn't say unique, but we are very similar probably to the Irish, to the Italian, to the Jews, and some others, where there are more Albanians living outside of Albanian land, if you like, and that means Albania, Kosovo, and other regions populated by Albanians, than in those regions themselves. It is the same for these other countries that I've mentioned. There are probably more, so I'm sorry if I don't know who they are. So it makes sense because obviously we'll have some excellent presentations later on, and they'll tell us about the work that they do in Albania, in the region, amongst the Albanians, in Kosovo as well. It is such a great pleasure to see, and I'm so sorry, Gani, for saying these to you before you say them. I hope I'm not stealing anything. I haven't seen your speech. So the people who are involved are really people who are held in very high esteem and very high officials. For example, if I have to name a few names, President Mejdani, President Sejdiu, President Yahyaga in Kosovo, President Moisiu, and President Nishani, I believe, former president that is. These are just a few names amongst many thousands, I think, of people that are involved in Albania. So, because we have representation, Albanian representation in all in most countries in Western Europe mainly, and definitely in the United Kingdom, we thought that it is an excellent opportunity to add some more value, because the more councils that there are, the more value is added to their causes and their values. Therefore, we decided that it is time to set up a council in the United Kingdom, and this is the whole reason why we're here today. So thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy the day.